Dropped ice again. Welcome to yet another episode of Mixology and Mortgages with Hatchman. So today I'm going to be talking about the future of the real estate market. Where are we going to see things for the year 2022? We can't really talk about next year or 2022 until we talk about 2021, right? It was a wild year in every possible way you can think of, but especially when it comes to housing, right? So we looked at the housing market. It was ridiculously solid. It was amazing. It was probably the best year housing has had in a long, long time. Anybody that owned a home or bought a home in 2020 for the year 2021 saw a ton of appreciation. This was across the board, guys, in every single market, which is rare. But specifically for here in Arizona, we saw a huge increase, one of the top in the entire country, actually, when it comes to appreciation. Double-digit appreciation as far as when you bought your home compared to where it was worth. Now, at the beginning of the year in 2021, we also saw ridiculous just offers going in on homes, right? Nobody could find a house because one, demand was there. It was high, right? Everybody wanted to buy a house, but supply was crazy short. Nobody could find one. And when they could, they would have to bid crazy over asking in order to get those houses. I mean, you guys saw it. For the 2021 first half of the year, we were seeing insane things like $100,000 over asking price, $50,000 cash closing in 10 days, whatever it took, people wanted to buy these houses. Now, here we are towards the end of the year, at least when I'm filming this. It's actually December 30th. We're just about the end of the year here. We're seeing it slow down. Now, that doesn't mean that it's gone the other way, right? We still have a very short supply and a very high demand. It's just not anywhere near what it was beginning of the year. We can probably expect to see that continue. My personal belief is we're going to continue to see that level out, but it's going to make a little bit more sense going into the new year. We're still going to see a very strong demand for housing. There's no crash anywhere in sight, guys. I've had several other videos about this. Market's not crashing. It's going to continue to rise. It's just not going to rise at such a steep pace as it did for the first part of the year. It's going to get back to that normal curve. Let's talk about interest rates because that's what everyone wants to talk about. Let's talk about what they did do for this year. Rates for 2021 were at an all-time low, right? 30-year fixed mortgages in the twos. It was crazy. It was an amazing year. If you didn't refinance or buy a house, did you miss the boat? We'll find out. Looking at the current year, I do think we're going to continue to see interest rates rise. Now, I say the word continue because they've been on a steady little uptick the last couple of months if you haven't been paying attention. Now, when we talk about interest rates rising, again, we got real spoiled in the summertime of this year because rates were in the twos. Now they're in the mid threes, right? We're in kind of that 3.5, 3.3, kind of in that range right now. I do think we're going to probably see that continue on through the first part of 2022, at least up until February and March. I think rates will get as high as maybe even 4% in some cases. A lot that goes into it, but the average median rate, I think we're going to see in the very high threes, low fours. But we also know that the Fed is kind of easing off how much they're buying when it comes to those mortgage-backed securities and everything that they're doing to help support the economy. Right now, inflation is not transitory as they thought it was. Inflation is up, right? We all see it. We all feel it. Things are more expensive. Inflation is kicking in. As inflation continues to grow, there needs to be a way to combat that, right? So as inflation rises, interest rates rise. That's just how it works. But obviously, we know that the government needs to do something to help bring inflation down. So depending on the steps that they take, we already know that they're going to be, tapering with their buys and things like that. And we also know that they're going to raise rates. The Fed is going to raise rates. Now, in a previous video, I talked about how the Fed rate and mortgage rates are not the same. A lot of people think that when the Fed raises rates, mortgage rates are going up. I don't think that's going to be the case this year. I actually think that once the Fed decides to raise rates, which is probably going to be, what did they say, March, April, May, kind of in that area, I think we're actually going to see mortgage rates go down when that happens. I know, kind of a weird prediction, but I do think that we're going to start off the year with a little bit higher interest rate, and then they're going to come back down towards middle of the year, kind of, nothing crazy, but again, where we're kind of used to seeing in those mid to low threes. So That's personally where I think it's going to go. There's still going to be a very strong demand for housing. Appreciation is still going to be there. Long story short, it's going to be very good to purchase a home. You're not going to see the types of returns that you probably saw this past year if you bought a house, as far as how much it earned in value. I don't think we're going to see that, but there is still a huge opportunity there. So if you are not a homeowner, if you are not a home investor, it's still a great time to get into it, but do it soon, because again, as interest rates rise, what does that do to your buying power, right? It's going to decrease it. If rates go up, payments go up. If your payment goes up, you're less likely to be able to afford something, which is going to help with home prices a little bit, because if less people can afford it, then that will slow demand, right? But not to a point to where people are going to stop buying and it's going to reverse. That I don't think is going to happen. There you have it, guys. There are my predictions for the year 2022. I do think we're going to see a slight interest rate raise throughout the first part of the year, then they're going to come back down as the Fed raises rates. But a lot will depend on what happens with inflation, and there are a few wild cards in there, right? So wild card number one is the COVID. We don't know what's going to happen with that. We don't know if there's going to continue to be additional strains. That can throw a monkey wrench in everything. The other thing is what the Fed's going to decide to do. How are they going to combat this inflation? And finally, the stock market. How is the stock market going to react to different activities happening, whether it comes to the Fed tapering off, just overall economic things that can go down? I do think we're going to see a dip in the stock market because everyone's in stocks right now. Lots of people are buying. It's high. I think we're going to see that come down in the year 2022 as well. So there you have it. I think stocks are going to be lower. Interest rates are going to get lower mid part of the year, and housing will continue to be strong. So there you have it, guys. If you have any comments, if you think the same, if you think something different, love to hear your reasons as to why. Be sure to hit me up in the comments. But before we do that, let's get to the cocktail. So today is making a very classic cocktail. This is one of my favorites. I picked it for a lot of different reasons. Number one, it's one of my favorite drinks. And number two, we talked about everything going down in 2022, and there's going to be a little bit of bitterness, right? If we see the stock market go down, or if we see the interest rates go up, some people might be a little bit bitter about that. There's nothing more bitter than Campari. Campari is a great bitter aperitif. It's great to help you digest food, but it is pretty bitter. So we're going to smooth it out with some Elijah Craig whiskey, some bourbon, and this good stuff right here, Carpano Antica vermouth. So this is the Boulevardier. If you have never had a Boulevardier, it's just these three simple ingredients, guys. It is bourbon, it is vermouth, and Campari. So let's get to it. This one we will be stirring. It does not get shaken. It is a stirred one because we want to be able to taste those spirits. So we're going to start with 1.5 ounces of Elijah Craig bourbon. And for those of you, if you've never had this, it is easily one of my favorite ones. Bang for your buck. Elijah Craig small batch is one of the best bourbons out there. They have a few other variations. They have a toasted barrel. They have a single barrel. They have a barrel proof. They're all phenomenal. This guy you can get pretty much anywhere at any one of the stores. Next, we're going to have 3/4 ounce of the Carpano Antica. It's going to go right there in the glass as well. And then that same amount we're going to add in Campari. 3/4 ounce. Okay. Now we just got to add ice. Dropped ice again. So we're going to stir this bad boy up. Again, easy stir. Just stir it till it gets nice and cold. We don't want to dilute it. That's why we're not shaking it. We want to be able to taste each one of these flavors. They actually mix very, very well together. Even though this is very bitter, it gets smoothed out by the whiskey and the vermouth. All right, that's probably good enough. I had this guy chilling in the freezer, so I do like a nice cold glass when it comes to these Boulevardiers. So that's my personal preference. No ice in the glass. I drink it straight up. You can pour it into an old-fashioned glass like this. You can throw it in one of those coup glasses. I mean, glassware is completely up to you guys. I honestly don't really care about it, but this one I think looks pretty cool in a nice chilled glass. And there you have it, guys. The Boulevardier, a little bit of bitterness, but it all is gonna work out if we get the right stuff going. That's been another episode of Mixology Mortgages. I am Hatchman. If you have any questions, please hit me up in the comments. And as always, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Thanks, guys. Cheers.